in Raquel's, it was like everyone was on the drugs. Doorman was selling drugs. I'm not saying what doorman, but the doorman was selling drugs. And half the time it was Tony's gear they were selling.
Well, the business they were in pills, in ecstasy pills, that they were distributed to clubs.
You've got to put your people in, and their job is to stop anyone else dealing in the club, and then split the profits. Or give them a percentage of the profits, a third, whatever.
He was manipulative, and he fooled probably a lot of people into thinking that he was a good friend to them, whereas basically he was a user. That's all he was a user and a bully.
The impression I had of Rolf was that he was a very obliging sort of guy, would do anything. He was a sort of golfer, you know, and he liked to be on the fringes of things. He wasn't really a villain.
Tate was a 20-stone steroid monster. He's actually a nice-looking guy, Pat was.
Their speciality was robbing people. They would make a meet with some people who were selling, say, cocaine. They'd meet them at the motorway services and get them to meet one side of the service while they were the other side of the service. They'd cross over and say they were going to leave someone there while they went across and checked the commodity. Well, when they got to the other side, they'd just take off.
Pat Tate was basically a bodybuilder. Got all on steroids and basically a bully. He went in a pizza house, smacked the bloke around because he was a fool.
You just had to be careful what you said, because it don't matter who you was, they would have a go.
Tony's walked in, and then I was hoovering, doing my cleaning up, doing my housework, and Tony said, so I stopped the hoover. Tony said to me, "Where's the thing?" Which he meant the 2-2 revolver. So I got the 2-2 revolver out from under the stairs where it was hidden, give it to him, said it's clean and it's loaded. I've checked it. With that, he's got the gun in his right hand. He's pushed me back against the wall and started banging the gun in my head. And I just thought I'm dead. And so I kept thinking I'm dead because I knew it was loaded. Last time I see Pat was just after I'd shot him and he was in the kitchen window when I tried to shoot him then and he ran down the hall. Last time I see Tony was after I tried to shoot him, and as I was driving out of town trying to find their car's come out of onto a T-junction, and I see them, they see me, but I'd driven past them, and then they were staying behind me, and each time I was going to get out of the car and run back and shoot them, they were reversing on the main road, so that was the last time I see him. He went down for an operation or something, and the nurse was changing his bed, and she found the gun under the bed, and Pat got nicked for having the gun, and he ended up going back in prison on breach of his parole. There was me, like a lunatic, running around with a shotgun.
Mick Steele wasn't fancy cars or Porsches or Jaguars or anything like that. He had his own truck where he'd done his own engineering work. You know, he wasn't, you know, the big drug baron. That wasn't Mickey Steele.
Jack Williams, a large-built man. He was a steadfast rock for Steele. He was his lieutenant who did as he was told and supported Michael Steele in dishonest activities.
Him and Jack got on well because they was both engineers. They always talking engines and, you know, which didn't interest me.
Darren Nichols, a married man with children, as far as my memory serves me, a couple of daughters, held a regular job down, then got involved in some dishonest behaviour, and as a result of that, met up with Michael Steele.
If anyone else went into a nightclub and started selling their own particular drugs, the doorman would stop them. They'd take their drugs off of them, give them a clump and chuck them out.
One time I made a meeting with Tate because Tucker wouldn't come to the meeting, so he sent Tate. That's when I did say to him, the way you're going, you know what's going to happen. Someone's going to creep up behind you and go bump in the back of the head. I was going to do that to Tucker, and when you're with him, same's going to happen to you. And that's when he looked me in the eye and said, well, if it happens, it happens. 3 days later, it happened.
Pat's seen the pump action, gone like that. Bang, Craig, bang, Tony, Craig. Tony and Craig didn't know a thing. You think of a loud bang in that confined space, you're going to like, you wouldn't even know, they didn't even know what happened. They were dead before they even heard the second sound of the gun.
The people were waiting where they thought they were going to have the switch over. Instead of getting the commodity, they got killed. Because obviously the people whose toes they were treading on were heavy people.
Yeah, it was only a matter of time when me and Free got killed. Just a matter of time, because I was catching everybody, having everybody over, just chucking away about in general where they could.
Well, what's got them killed was obviously greed. They'd been doing this, they'd been tucking people up, and that was the carrot that was put under the front of the donkey's nose. It was a big one, and they threw caution to the wind and just went for it, which the people obviously knew that they would.
My brother Jack, of the morning of the murders, Darren Nichols, the Supergrass, rang Jack up and said, my car's broken down on the way to work. And he said, would you pick it up, Jack? And Jack said, no, Darren, I'm working on the docks. And which he was. He said, I'll pick it up later. After Jack had finished work, he goes and gets Darren's car and rings Darren up and says, Darren, I've got your car. I'll take it back to the workshop. And Darren said, fine. And that's what Jack done, brought the car back to the workshop. That's where they say that Jack rang Darren to say, I've just shot him, come and get me.
It was essential evidence because it corroborated a lot of the evidence that Darren Nichols would give and was proved to be correct. And it also had him, Nichols, in touch with Steele and Wombs prior to and at the time of the murders being committed.
They'd done a lot of drug deals. And they, not only when they'd done drug deals, they'd actually gone to the drug deals, taken drugs, taken the money what they've gone there to buy the drugs with, and left. Tate Tucker and Rolfe was shot with the most precision you could ever see. You know, it wasn't... It was a marksman that shot those three guys.
The allegation was that the killers of the three men in the vehicle had crossed a field which was covered in snow, that around the car there would have been footprints, that there were sweetie papers in the back of a car in which it was claimed that my client had travelled, and yet there was no DNA found.
On the floor there was a crisp packet and a topic wrapper. Now, if there was no DNA at the scene, how did someone eat all them crisps? So there was DNA there.
There was not a scintilla of DNA evidence. All of it is absurd. I mean, it really is strange that there was no science. No science.
But was it that odd?
When the police arrived at the scene where the Range Rover was with the three bodies inside, it had been snowing, but a thaw had set in. So had there been any evidence within the snow, it could have evaporated away, as it were. Who is to say that the two witnesses who found the bodies, when they arrived, and they clearly had to go to the Range Rover, they looked around, so their footprints could in fact have damaged possibly some evidence that may have been there.
Tate Tucker and Rolfe went down that lane unarmed. They was villains known to have weapons around them. But why would they go down that lane if they was going to a drug deal or a temporary drug deal or even to a double cross, what they say? Why did they not go with guns? There was no guns at the scene.
This was a case which was quite unusual in that the absolute core of the evidence against the men in the dog was the evidence of an informer, the evidence of somebody who had himself been a criminal, who was himself somebody who had been involved in serious crime. He basically did a deal that he would give evidence against others in order to save his own skin.
Obviously he didn't do it for nothing. He was the sort of man probably that would do anything rather than go in prison.
He knew that he was also in the frame, quite possibly, as somebody who was party to murder, multiple murders. That was the great threat that hung over